Let's talk quickly about RNA. This will not take long. So you might remember this slide from our early chapters when we talked about nucleic acids on a generic level. So we have just talked about DNA. Now we should talk a little bit about RNA. Remember, DNA never leaves the nucleus, so we must be able to take the genetic blueprint from there in another way. And that is exactly what RNA does for us. It is otherwise pretty similar to DNA, but it is a single strand, has uracil instead of thymine. It can be found also in cytoplasm in addition to nucleus. It is kind of a helper rather than the genetic material per se. And it is translated, not transcribed, as DNA. And we will talk about this last thing a little later in this module. And in fact, there are 3 different types of RNA. Let's talk a little bit about them. Messenger RNA, known as mRNA, is what is actually made at the nucleus to make a copy of the DNA. And this is made because the DNA cannot leave and go outside the nucleus. So I often describe it as going to a library where you cannot take cookery books out from, but you can make photocopies of these books. So mRNA would be exactly like that, a copy of the real deal. Not quite the original, but good enough to be used as a recipe even when outside the library. And this messenger RNA travels to a ribosome, and it is ribosomal RNA, known as rRNA, which joins proteins, in fact 2 subunits, to make a ribosome. Remember, we talked about ribosomes earlier. They were the sites where proteins are made. And these proteins are made based on the instructions of messenger RNA. Now, our last one, transfer RNA, which is also known as tRNA, is actually what helps to make these proteins. Proteins are made of amino acids, as we discussed. So essentially, protein is just a chain of amino acids. And it is messenger RNA that tells us what amino acids we need to put in a chain, and then transfer RNA that reads this information from the mRNA and then brings the correct amino acids to the ribosome where they are joined together. So really, although these are all different kinds of RNA, they all work together. And that is where we are going to wrap up this quick video. These different types of RNA will make much more sense when we talk about the process of flow of genetic information. This is how we make proteins out of DNA info. Thank you for having joined me for this.